Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 24. What are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about self worth and feeling worthy. It's something that a lot of people struggle with. So, I'm excited to get into this topic.
Yeah, I think especially for entrepreneurs and business owners, it's a really important topic.
Yeah,
How's the week?
good. Not too much news since, our last episode where we really shared a lot of life updates. So, if you're interested in learning all about that, you can watch or listen to episode 23. But really, one thing I was going to share is that I'm more than halfway through my certified meditation teacher course. So I'm excited to be almost done with that and going to do some stuff with meditations and potentially record some meditations for the podcast and put it
Yeah,
into our courses. So, yeah. How about you?
it's really exciting. I think it's going to be cool to start to incorporate meditations and a lot of what you're learning and really, expand your skill set as a life coach.
Yeah.
I'm good. I think I've decided that I want to put out an EP or an album by my birthday. So that
You're putting it out there now. So now you got to do
yeah,
it. You
it's
got,
it's not gonna be simple. It's gonna be a big challenge. Um, but I think I'm in a really good place where I've learned a lot about living as an artist, and I've read a lot of books about it. And I was thinking about it the other day. Is like I can truly say it's something I've studied. So I think that I'm in a better place than I've ever been to write. I have honestly, I think fragments of all the songs that are going to be on there. So it's exciting.
yeah.
So let's get into culture and programming because I think when we talk about self worth, we have to consider what we're exposed to and kind of what we're around.
Yeah. I think that from a young age, we're really taught to start comparing ourselves,
Yeah.
especially like to classmates in school, on sports teams, things like that. And so there's always this like competitive level of comparing to others. When we've talked about it before, like the most important comparison you can make is just yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not about being better than someone else, but we're taught that at such a young age. And of course, like, friendly competition, there's no harm in that. But when you're really learning to grow into just this world of competition, it can really be like detrimental to the way that you see yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I even think about, you know, kind of that going unchecked for so long to where you have social media today where people just post the highlight reels, compare themselves to other people, not knowing the flashy car was rented or the lavish mansion was an Airbnb.
Hmm.
And they jump to conclusions, they compare, and they feel awful. And it really can affect your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that like we didn't have social media when we were growing up because
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really start with it until high school and it was only like MySpace at the time, right? So today, I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But so it's really like we start at a young age with this programming of, oh, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. And we start to just measure everything based on our accomplishments compared to someone else.
Yeah. So you have this example of musical chairs.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share that?
Just like the that game of musical chairs, and it's usually taught to kids at a very young age. Their brain is very much still developing. And it's like this idea that, each round someone is left out.
Yeah.
That's so harsh on a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what's going through their mind and they laugh at you when you're the one that's getting out and at the end it's only one person that's the winner. And it's like this idea that just each round like more people get eliminated and are again just seeing themselves as not good enough.
Yeah. It's like you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
And then I think too, like, culturally, it's this idea that you're on your own. Like we don't really, especially in America, it's hustle culture and you got to grind, you got to do this yourself. And, I say, nobody's coming to save you, but that's about your deep work. I think in what you do in your life, you really need to strive for community and belonging.
Yeah, community over competition.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having, friends or colleagues and stuff that are like in the same line of work as you or doing something similar in life. You don't have to see them as like a competitor to you.
Right.
You guys can absolutely help each other and there's enough in this world to go around for everybody.
Yeah. And I think to your point, we start comparing ourselves and measuring our worth by what we've accomplished rather than how we feel. And that becomes the lens that we go through life with.
Yeah, I saw something once years ago that was like, everybody always asks you when you're an adult, like, how's work? How's the kids? How's this and that? But nobody ever asks, like, are you happy?
Yeah.
And that's the true measurement of success. But people don't pay attention to that part because it's about the status, it's about the job title, the salary, the house that they have comparing to whoever else in the neighborhood or friends or family.
Yeah. I mean, even all the money books I've read, they've talked about, people make a ton of money and they're always striving for the next promotion, the next salary bump. But in reality, then they dig their financial hole deeper. So it's this self fulfilling prophecy of I need more. But at the same time, you're constantly digging the hole deeper. You're making a lifestyle you have to keep up with.
Yeah.
And it's not happy. It makes people feel awful and it definitely burns them out. But I think this is something that you've been through too with, you had a good job, you were very successful, you had a house at a very young age, but you weren't happy. You want
Yeah.
to kind of speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was following the path that society told me was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and that's, like, what so many people get caught in. I had the job, I had my house, I had a good salary, I had my dog and whatever, like, what more could I want?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't happy. So, I'm measuring this level of success based on what society told me was right when I never even took the time to truly get to know myself and know what I really wanted out of life.
Yeah.
It was like, go to school, get a job, you gotta start making money.
And that's kind of the downfall is like you're so busy, so preoccupied that you don't ever take the time to slow down and ask yourself.
Yeah. There's also just this constant marketing out there now where and ads and brands, and we've talked about this before, but it's you always need something else to feel better, to feel worthy.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that and I think I've shared this metaphor. I think it's a metaphor where I've talked about how like when you're kind of having your awakening and you're doing that deep work and really changing your identity, changing yourself, it's kind of like coming out of a washing machine. Like you start to see how you're just completely inundated, just absolutely flooded with brands and commercials and logos at every second of every day.
Yeah,
And part of that is this, capitalist programming of I need something outside of me.
right. When everything is just within you, and we've talked about that before too. You mentioned in here that you wanted to bring up just the idea that like society tells you you can't enjoy life.
Yeah. I mean,
It's supposed to be hard and stressful.
yeah, like adulting is tough. Life sucks. It's all downhill from here,
I heard that one so many times.
Yeah, and it's sad because honestly, when I hear those things, I pity the person. But this idea that you can't like enjoy your life, you can't have fun, you can't um, have satisfaction out of the way you spend your time. And I think the big one is work because people cling to safety and they want that security. But in Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks about this. There's a difference between seeking job security and seeking freedom.
Mhm.
They're two very different things, and you live in vastly different worlds depending on which one you're pursuing.
Yeah,
So I think it's worth understanding, the role of work.
yeah, absolutely. And one other metaphor I wanted to mention. So, I listened to a podcast by Christine Hassler a lot. She's a life coach. She's amazing. And her podcast is called Over It and On With It. So, she always does a bunch of life coaching calls where she's talking to people. And the idea of not feeling worthy comes up in almost every episode she does.
Yeah.
This is something that people have like underlying almost everything every time that they may be triggered over something or just are upset with the way that something may have gone. It always kind of comes back to this feeling of, well, I'm not good enough, I didn't deserve it, or whatever. And she made this a really interesting metaphor. She said, what happens within you when you're hungry? Your body sends you signals like to your brain, I'm hungry, I need food. And so you tend to that need.
Yeah.
Feelings of unworthiness is really just kind of the same idea. Like it's a normal human thing to have those thoughts of unworthiness. And you have to tend to yourself. You have to have compassion for yourself. You have to tell yourself you are worthy. You have to give yourself the love that you need. And, there's often like something that you're not giving to yourself, whether it's a physical need or something to do mentally. But it's just the idea that it is normal to have those feelings. It's as normal as being hungry and having feelings of hunger.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point because you have to consider like we are all human, but we've talked about this. Like there's no magical threshold you hit where you don't deal with these things anymore.
Right.
You are always going to be dealing with this because this is the human experience.
Right.
Your opportunity is in learning and figuring out how you respond differently to it.
Yeah. And even something that Panache Desai, he's an author. I probably did not pronounce that right, so I apologize. But he has a book called You Are Enough.
Mm,
I loved that book. I can't recommend it enough. And there's some things in here too where we discuss some of his ideas, but he really says like you're born worthy, just worthy of everything, worthy of love, and there's no point in time where that just leaves.
yeah.
You're always worth anything and everything.
So, not to get biblical, but this is something that's always taught. Like as a human, you have an innate value. When I worked with our energy healer, she told me that. She said, you're falling into that trap. You're trying to measure yourself by what you've accomplished. But just by being here, by existing as a human, you have your worth. You have all that you need. And I think it's important that people understand that because people, like me, I fell into that trap of thinking like I had to accomplish something else. I had to have a new milestone in order to be credible or have that worth.
Yeah.
And that's just not reality. By existing, you are worthy, you have enough, you are showing up exactly as you need to.
Yeah. So, anything else on just kind of where this unworthiness feeling comes from? Or can we talk about what feeling that self worth really looks like?
I think before we go into that, I want to mention like how it manifests itself with entrepreneurs
Mm,
because it's kind of this balancing act of something you want to do versus your network and how they impact you, especially friends and family. Um, so I think, like I said, we have this idea of like you can't enjoy things, you can't do something that's going to be fun and fulfilling and thrive.
mm,
Like people treat it as if you're doing your own thing, you can't be successful. And if you were successful, then you got crazy lucky or you had help. And I think it's important, we've talked about this before, but when you have a business venture, a lot of times it's not your friends and family that are really actively engaged. And that's not to say like they're not supportive, but they're not going to be the like loyal people following everything. Um, and I think that's important because expectations shut people down. And then there's a trap there of, well, is it good enough? And as an entrepreneur, you want to create better for yourself. Generally, these are people who are very driven and they're seeking freedom. They don't want to be stuck in the same place and know that the most they're going to get is a 3% raise at the end of the year, you know? So I think when creating that, a lot of entrepreneurs fall into the trap of, am I actually able to do this? Am I worthy of it? And the struggle is, do the people around you believe in you? Because your will has to be greater than whatever noise is around you.
Yeah, it's seeking that external validation from people. And, the idea of imposter syndrome comes up because
Yeah.
you're constantly comparing yourself to other businesses or entrepreneurs who have done this and been successful. And it's like, can I actually do that? Am I actually good enough to do that? And that's that behind that is the self worth.
Yeah. Yeah. Imposter syndrome is there for sure.
Yeah. So it's just important to not identify with those and understand that it's normal to have those thoughts and feelings of unworthiness. And you have to believe in yourself and put everything else, to the side. It's about you and yourself.
Yeah. I deeply believe that the people who don't make it or give up generally let the noise around them get in their head.
Yeah.
I don't think that they always exhaust all options. And I don't always think that they're listening only to themselves and their passion.
Yeah.
So, in terms of what self worth actually looks like, especially as it pertains to entrepreneurs and business owners, what can you share there?
Yeah, I think the first thing is what I just kind of mentioned is you have to lift yourself up. You have to believe in yourself. The belief in yourself is the strongest thing that's going to carry you forward.
Yeah.
You cannot be looking for the external validation because you're not always going to get it. People are worried about their own selves, their own stressors. And yeah, while it's great to receive the celebration and support, you can't just expect that. Like, you have to celebrate each milestone, as small as it may be, on your path.
Yeah. And I think with external validation, especially with friends and family, there's a tendency to want to be validated by what you're doing, your business venture, or even just oversharing, like, things that happen, some revenue milestone or an event where you kind of share these things because you want validation.
Mhm.
And I also think about it in terms of social media. Like a lot of influencers will, post something. Do you guys want to see more of this or more of that? And it's like, it's good in the sense of like you're getting engagement. You're sure maybe giving the audience a little bit of a say, but at the same time, you're using other people's opinions to influence how you move forward. And really, you need to find that internally in terms of like what feels right, what is my brand, and how do I move forward in that way.
Just show up as your true self,
Yeah.
like your absolute, true, authentic self. And when you do that, your people are gonna tell. Like, they're gonna be able to know, "Oh, that's real. This person is who they say they are, and I'm interested in learning from them or purchasing from them, connecting with them," or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I also think about like just brand image. If somebody's asking, what do I post? They don't know themselves. They don't know who they are or what they want to talk about versus someone who is decided in that they come off authoritatively because they've made that decision and they're moving forward how they need to move forward for themselves.
Yeah.
So, I guess a long winded way of saying do what feels right and stop asking other people for validation or help, especially the people close to you, because that tends to be a setup for disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, wanting to talk through things and get some feedback, but don't take the feedback so personally that you then
Mm,
go against your own idea. Like, you have to be able if you wanna share something, that's great, but you have to be able to share that knowing that, like, no matter what they say, you're gonna move forward with what feels right to you.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you'll get a little tidbit here and there of like, "Oh, that's a great idea, like, maybe I'll tweak this small thing," and that's great, but if they say something and you don't align with that, that's okay. You don't have to just take their opinion, that's one person.
Yeah. And I think a great example of that is actually me and my dad and my uncle. So they've been in very high level corporate situations and consulting and I've asked them for not advice, just kind of input at times. But what I really appreciate is that there's always this understanding of, I'm going to move forward how I want to move forward. When I ask them for insight, it's basically me understanding I'm asking someone who maybe has a little more experience in that arena, might see something I don't see. At the end of the day, they'll share that, but they don't say like I would do this. There's a mutual understanding there of I'm kind of collecting info,
Yeah.
and that's a healthy way to do it.
Yeah, it's just collaborating. And I
Yeah.
think that if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, the best kind of people that you can like connect with sometimes are other entrepreneurs because they understand just the entire journey of entrepreneurship on a totally different level.
Yeah.
So it's important to see who you're surrounding yourself with. And these people might also understand the difficulties of the worthiness piece sometimes. They've gone through their own struggles and they can tell you like it's worth it to just keep going
Yeah.
and believe in yourself.
So I think another point here is life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Meaning, to you, I think is a little more of that victim mentality of I can't control it. This crappy thing happened versus for you, which is really empowering you to grow. It's a deeply personal journey, and the things that you're experiencing are meant to help you grow and learn from.
Yeah, that's something I really appreciate is that we really always try to find like the gratitude in even the most difficult situations that we've been in.
Yeah.
The amount of times that we've had to pivot in our business, in our first business, our digital marketing agency, the amount of like frustrations and time we spent, trying to get clients thinking they were going to sign and we just wasted our time or had clients actually sign and send money and disappear. I mean, there's
And we
so
did the
many.
right thing and sent the money back. They never responded, but cashed the check. Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah, but we haven't told many of those stories
No.
because it doesn't matter. Like that just keeps you stuck there and again the victim mentality. Oh, poor me, poor me.
Yeah, I can't believe this happened versus like, no, what are we doing with this? And we did. We learned a lot in terms of like what we actually wanted to pursue and what we wanted to be around and even down to the kinds of businesses and entrepreneurs that we were working with. Um and we did a lot and there was even a period of time where we helped people build businesses and get them set up with the website, file the paperwork and set up with, registrations. And we've done a lot in a lot of different areas. And I think it's our ability to always be able to shift gears and pivot and do something else and um, make it work. Because at the end of the day, like all we're doing is just chasing what we're truly passionate about, whatever that is at the time. And we make that work.
Yeah, I think what you just said there brings me to another thing I wanted to mention from Paniche to say from his book You Are Enough. He says your true value can only be sourced from your soul.
Love that.
Like you are the only person who knows what's inside your soul. Your soul is really part of your heart. It's your uniqueness to you. And your worth and your value can only come from within you and knowing that you're living in your truest self.
Yeah. I think especially, for entrepreneurs, like it's just understanding that you can't live in a space where the opinions and judgments of other people affects your worth, affects your momentum in your business. Because at the end of the day, I've talked about this before. If you're lying awake at night at 3 a.m., like that's a moment with just you. All the noise of other people is removed. It's truly about what's in your head. And those people don't go through and live your day to day with you. So you really got to choose like what is it that I want to do? What is my worth and what am I capable of? Because again, anyone who ever did something that was seen as great or impossible first had to choose and believe that they were capable of doing it.
Yeah. So, what does self worth look like? It's really about accepting yourself exactly as you are. It's knowing that maybe you're not in the ideal, perfect place that you want to be in life, in business, but accepting where you are and the idea that you can continue to grow from there.
Yeah. I think a lot about, I think I've talked about this, but I've had, videographer contacts who really struggled with like having a schedule and I have too, not to say I haven't. But I always think about sleep. Like if I sleep in and then I'm disappointed. I'm not going to get as much done. And it's accepting that and knowing, how do I move forward from here today and set myself up for success again tomorrow? And you're going to always be having to accept where you're at and then make a plan for where you want to be.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that gets us stuck in the self-worth loop and feelings of unworthiness is judging and shaming ourselves.
Yeah.
That just continues to perpetuate the cycle
Yeah.
of those negative feelings about yourself. You have to accept, the downfall that you may have had or the thing that you did that wasn't necessarily your greatest idea or most best decision. You have to accept it and not judge yourself in order to move in the right direction. Because if you just shame and belittle yourself, you're going to keep going in a downward spiral.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've shared this, but we had, times where we were barely making $1,000 a month. And I was definitely shaming myself. I was definitely judging myself. And part of that was we used the 555 method of manifesting. So we wrote 55 times for 5 days. I'm so happy and grateful to be making 10,000 a month.
Mhm.
And, it really helped me start to restructure and rewrite that script in my head of, oh, I'm only making this. No, I'm making this and I'm experiencing these emotions. And it really, where attention goes, energy flows. You got to choose what you're focusing on.
Yeah, that's such a huge piece to it is what you're paying attention to and what you're continuing to tell yourself about yourself is going to create more of that in your life. So accept the things that you do or have had to deal with that maybe aren't ideal,
Yeah.
but the only thing you can do is move forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, release that judgment and shame. And that's kind of what we're talking about is like that never just goes away completely. Like this is a part of being human. What makes you, well, I guess for lack of a better term, successful is how you manage that because your success is going to come from having that compassion with yourself and really making sure your head is a nice place to be, that you're, compassionate with yourself and your inner child and able to work through those difficult emotions.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned inner child because that's really where it all starts, like the
Yeah.
feelings of unworthiness. So if you have those thoughts come up, it's important to stop and have that compassion.
Yeah.
It's okay to have those thoughts. It doesn't mean that they're true.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, talk to us about the power of and.
I've recently started really trying to use this. So, one of my favorite artists, musicians, actually, Jana Kramer, talks about this. She uses the word and because you can be like in two different mentalities at the same time. You can be stressed and scared and frustrated, and you can have gratitude.
Yeah.
You can experience multiple emotions at once. And having the and in there is just a really great way of being able to remind yourself and pull in like it's going to be okay and I still believe in myself even if you're going through something that's maybe difficult.
Yeah. And I think too about like, it's this idea of thinking positively. Like, thinking positively is a choice, but the people who manifest unbelievable things in their lives, they have learned to flex that muscle, to focus on the positive. And it's not toxic positivity. It's not thinking things never go wrong, but it's understanding what benefits you to put your energy into.
Yeah, you can recognize if something isn't perfect and you can always have hope and gratitude and you can be sad and grateful. You can love yourself and want to work on improving yourself.
Yeah. And it gives you the, I guess, point of reference for like, there's two options here. And, it really just doesn't serve you to focus so heavily on negative emotions. I mean, if there's something there you need to work through, sure. But if it's something that really is just going to hold you back versus, flipping that script and looking at the positive of, I'm not making enough money, but I'm grateful for the money I do have. Well, lean into being grateful for the money you do have you know?
Yeah. You can't like create and grow from a space of just I don't feel worthy. You
Yeah.
can say, I'm struggling with these feelings and I believe in myself and I'm going to keep working towards it. So, next time you maybe have like that negative thought, pair it with an
Yeah.
and see how else, you can help yourself have a little more compassion towards yourself.
Yeah. See how that feels.
Yeah.
Anything else on worthiness?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So have that compassion for yourself. Like we said, it's not, you don't just hit some magical threshold. You just learn how to manage yourself and your mindset better.
Yeah.
I would also say be extremely cautious of the outside energy you let into your idea of worth and value. Um, and I think always just being rooted in that, just by having a soul and by being here, you have the worthiness to do what you choose to do.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder, this podcast is sponsored by New Moon Apparel. That is our Zen motivation and moon themed clothing line. You can shop designs at newmoonapparel.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.